And welcome back, everyone, to another RLT Pivot podcast. My name is Tracy, and I am once again joined with my amazing co-host, Mr. Dan Jansen. How are you, sir?
Awesome. Good to be back as usual. And for this week, we want to discuss self-learning. So what is self-learning and how that could actually benefit your trading? And I think people throw out the term self-learning and they go, yeah, but where do I start? What should I, what is step one? How do I crawl before I walk? So let's take it to the very basic. What is self-learning to you? What is that even classified as?
Well, for me, that would be researching, figuring it out on my own, not with without having somebody guide my hand and telling me what to do. Right? Other than, I guess, other than a video or a book, right? It's not actually having a physical presence of a person telling me, hey, do this, do this, do this, explaining things, teaching me. I'm taking it upon myself to read the books, watch the videos, do the investigation, learn where I need to start, figure out what I don't know, figure out what I need more information on. It's all self-directed that way. So that's what self-learning is, in my opinion. How about you?
Yeah, I could definitely find some common ground there. I would say self-learning is a huge aspect to not just trading markets, but to anything that you do. I mean, if you want to get good at something, you're going to have to take it upon yourself. I think the one thing that I would say is I'm thinking about this one. I don't know if it's inherent or something that you could change. I'll ask your opinion on this, but it would be the desire to self-learn. I think that is something that, because I think we could all pick up a book. I mean, even if somebody's listening and they actually do not know how to read, which is possible, there's always a way to learn how to read. Even that in itself is some type of self-learning, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't have the desire to pick up a book and you just want to come into the markets and say, I watched that one video on YouTube and man, that guy seems like a genius and he had a yacht and a Ferrari, so I'm going to take whatever he says and just do that over and over again. Is that to you, number one, self-learning? And is that, would that really classify as a desire to do to self-learn?
I'm not sure I have an answer for that. That's an interesting question.
We're in two or 3 years of the Pivot podcast. I finally got to stump you.
What are your thoughts on that? Like,
I would say watching one video on YouTube is a part of self-learning because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
The continuation is the desire to, so like in some sense you have a minimal desire because you've watched one video and you want to jump into the market. I think for both of them, yes, there is a sense of, number one, desire to self-learn, self-educate. And I think you are, in some sense, you are self-learning the markets. But to a very minimal degree, I think the desire that comes in, the continued desire to learn more, to grasp more, to learn to fully understand something is what makes somebody a successful trader. And I think that is a very tough quality to install into somebody. I can't teach you how to desire something. You have to want to do that yourself.
Yeah, and that's the part that stumped me, was when you asked me whether that's the desire. Really, because I think desire comes from a few different things. It's fostered out of, number one, boredom, but being forced to be in a position you got nothing else to do. That'll drive some type of a desire. There's need. That's going to drive a desire. So if it's an absolute need, you need to do this and you have no other choices, it's going to drive a desire for self-learning. And I just think back to where I really started to do self-learning. And I remember being in math class, couldn't leave class, in math class, but they weren't learning as fast as I wanted to learn or could learn. So I'm sitting at my desk and I have absolutely nothing else to do because I'm stuck in the class for however long, but I've already learned what they taught. I've already done all the work. And so I opened up the book and I just started jumping ahead. I started moving ahead. I started doing more questions. And I thought, cool, I'm getting ahead, because now what ends up happening is the next class, again, I'm bored because I've got nothing to do. I'm already done the work from before because I did it in the last class. So I just keep doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it. And now then it becomes a game or a challenge or some kind of a self-fulfilling reward that I was getting because I was always ahead and getting ahead. But the benefit for me that really solidified the self-learning was then my teacher recognized that I was moving ahead and said, "Hey, why don't you do this?" and flopped the grade 10 book down on my desk and said, "Here, start doing grade 10 math instead, because let's challenge you because you've already started to do this," which again got that drive continued going. So for me, boredom really set me on the path for self-learning. And I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but it's that's why I say I think that there's boredom, there's need, necessity, I should say. Uh, have there been anything that has driven your desire to self learn?
Good question. Well, I think desire from people comes from different aspects or different drives, I guess. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think some people are motivated by wanting to get ahead. Some people have their back against the wall and they don't have another choice.
Exactly.
And those would probably be the two. I mean, those are probably the two things that will instill some kind of desire into something. It's either you want to get out of where you are, or you're looking to dominate something, right? You're looking to be the best at something.
Mm-hmm.
One's more survival, and the other one is more looking to achieve something. So, and I think they're rooted differently, but I think they deliver the same goals. I would say that um, for me, it's more of I get frustrated because I can't do something, and I
Mm.
think that gives me desire to do it better than anybody else, right?
But if you
So
were given a choice to take a class where somebody taught you versus actually learn it on your own, do you have a preference?
I don't know if there's a difference, honestly. So in we are no if we're self-learning, we're still learning from somebody else. If we read a book, we're learning from the person that wrote the book, and he's writing the book because he's
Ah,
learned it from other people.
so
So
you're
I
talking
don't
about
think
engagement. I get it.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't. Yeah, exactly. So I'm talking about engagement. One has the engagement of physically being able to, like, if I read a book, for the most part, I mean, now with technology, you could probably shoot an email to the author, and depending on how big the person is that wrote the book, whether they get back to you or not is different.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you're reading a book or you're looking up something, you're not self learning. You're self learning, but you're not engaging with the person providing that material. I for which some people could do that, and then some people need that little extra hand holding. So I think they're a
Hmm.
learning style, but I don't think that affects the desire to want to learn.
I love that direction that you just took that. So that's great. That's a really good point. I never looked at it that way because I always considered self-learning to be independent from class or independent from school. And really it's not, because self-learning, it's just that's the learning style, whether you do it online, whether you do it through reading a book or whether you do it through being in a class, it's actually being engaged in your own learning, engaged in actually absorbing the information and understanding the information, because you can be in a class and not be self-learning. You can be in a class and be self-learning. There's two different scenarios that I never really looked at before until just now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
every idea that somebody has is stemming from another influence,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think there's no such thing as an original idea.
Mm.
I think if you just put a brand new, I think if you took three brand new babies, and I guess newborns is what other normal people call them, but and you put them into a room, right, and they just survive and grow up by themselves,
Yeah.
completely uninfluenced from any other outside world. I think then you start to have maybe some kind of idea, but how advanced would the train of thought be, right? The
Mm.
ideas that they come up with probably won't be something that might impress us because we've already developed as human beings where we have culture, we have even songs that come out in some sense, whether you're stealing the track, the beat, the sample, you're stealing some kind of lyrics, you're getting influenced to write your song based off of another song or thought process that you heard from somewhere else. So I don't really think there's really an original idea floating out there in the world. I think there's different perspective spins on it, which help create different directions and new takes on the idea to help advance things. So for me, advanced learning or self learning something yourself, to me, that is still, you still needed to get your idea from somewhere. You still need to learn from somebody else that has been on that journey for the first time, and even that person in some way has probably been influenced of his decision making or her decision making by other people, other venues, other institutions, things like that as well. So, and I think that does give us, I would say, mob mentality, which in
Mhm.
the markets are important because if you have you even see it on earnings, right? You could have a company that reports great earnings on something and it sells off.
Mhm.
Well, why does it sell off? It's because you can look at these things and be like, yeah, they're growing, they look good, but mob mentality of, you know what, an institution selling and they're starting to drop the price, therefore maybe I should get out too, and then it starts to snowball, and that's why you get momentum in the stock market, right? You might have a different thought process as to why you got into a trade, but why you get out of a trade might because you're getting scared. Everybody else is starting to do it. If they have an idea on something, it starts to influence your decision of how to do it as well, right? So
Mm.
I don't know that anybody could truly sit there in a pure definition of sit there and self learn, um, but to be able to process information without the engagement is, I think, a different thing. And
Yeah.
the desire to be able to do that and say, yeah, I want to learn as much as possible. I want to develop my skills at something. You have to be persistent in wanting. You have to be persistent in desire to learn that information. If I
Mhm.
watch one YouTube video or 7 YouTube videos, it doesn't make me a professional in what I'm doing, right? So therefore, if your desire comes from a root of I need to be the best that I could be, I want to outshine somebody in a certain scenario, then that is going to give you the desire to pursue your path as far as being able to want to learn more. Like I did 10 videos or I read 10 books. All right, if I read 10 more, where's that going to get me, right?
Mhm.
And that is an internal self thing that I think people, for the most part, they're I think born with that desire to want to improve, and some people are just copacetic with the way that they are currently living, and they don't have that need to trigger desire portion that should be in somebody.
So you think that you think that that's a nature thing? You think that people are born with that desire? You don't think that that could be nurtured?
I think it is. I think it is nurtured. Yes. Um, in I think it's 100% nurtured. I will say that.
Okay.
I think that how it's nurtured comes from different places. So
Mm.
if you were born as Warren Buffett's kid, and I don't know his kids, I don't maybe they're all doing what they do, but let's just go with you're born into an extremely wealthy family,
Mhm.
or you're born and your family's completely broke and you're very tough to find food to eat, and everybody's kind of working, hustling. The mindset of those two kids are very different. I
Mm.
don't think either of them. I don't think either of them. I think they both could have the same desire, but I think the desire comes from two different spots. One just wants to be like, hey, I'm looking up to my parents who are wealthy. I like the lifestyle I'm living. I want to learn what they're doing. The other one is probably saying, I want to change something about myself, my situation, the family situation, and their desire is they both could have the same desire, but again, their motivation for that is
Mhm.
very different, coming from different
Yeah.
places.
I want to stay in this place versus I want to get out of this place. Totally get
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. 100%. I I think that that motivation and that drive, the other thing I think that nurtures that is actually finding success when you actually go on the process of learning something. So, uh, if you start tackling things that you're, I guess, that are outside of the scope of your current skill set and you meet failure, that that's kind of that first impression to learning new things, and it puts a sour taste in your mouth, and people shy away from that instead of recognizing that you can't get from A to B without doing a bunch of different little things. You need to prepare yourself for it. And I think that's what I see in the stock market a lot, where people's expectations just don't line up with where they should be lined up. So then they get on this path because you can't go to school and have somebody teach this. There's no curriculum that's based on it. It's there's education out there here and there. You got to kind of piecemeal it together. So it requires a lot of discipline and self-learning in order to be able to learn this. And if your expectations aren't in the right place and you're not accustomed to self-learning in the way that I understand it to be, which is self-directed learning, I should say, then if those expectations aren't in line with what they should be, it's very easy for you to be discouraged from self-learning, and then you turn it away and go, oh, no, I can't do this anymore. I can't learn this way. I don't like it. And then you get turned off from it. And that can be very detrimental for your future growth, because as we've pointed out, that self-learning is there in just about everything. If you want improvement, regardless of what it is, if you want to better yourself, you want to become better at your job, better at a skill, better at a relationship, better at whatever, better at being a person, better at getting through challenges, better at overcoming, whatever it might be, there's a level of self-learning that has to take place to reach that level of performance. And if you shy away from it and you become okay with where you're at, I think that comes from reaching failure at the wrong time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. I
Yeah.
think I think how success is viewed will encourage or discourage desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you
Yeah.
consistently need desire to be there in order to develop, to grow, and get yourself to the next level.
Mm.
But if I'm sitting there, if there's two different people with $10,000 in their account, right, and their goal for that year is I want to be a millionaire, and one person is sitting there and he goes, "Great, I made $500,000 this year." The other person made 25,000,
Mm-hmm.
right? The person that made 500,000, if they're looking at their perspective of, well, my goal was 1,000,000, I missed my target, and you start to lose that desire to keep on building and learning, eventually you're going to go backwards, right? You're just going to
Mm-hmm.
give up on it. You're not going to treat it the same. You're going to try different strategies, even though you're doing very well, right? By any stretch of the imagination, you just made $500,000, but you did not hit your target. So if you're taking your success as a failure, I think that is detrimental to your progress, and I think it ends up hurting the desire to want to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
However, if the person that made $25,000 is sitting there and he's like, you know what, I didn't even come close to my million, but if I did not take these steps, what I've learned already got me to 25,000. If I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to keep on growing, imagine what next year will bring, right? And if that person has that thought, even though he made a far less money as a result, but if he sees it as it's just a stepping stone to get him to eventually where he wants to be, I think that desire grows and it inflames him to even get better next year. So I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
understanding how success affects somebody, or how people take success during the entire process, during the entire journey, will get that person to really their targets, their goals, and to the place that they want to be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's certainly some building blocks that um, make self-learning successful versus not successful. So those building blocks, having your expectations, recognizing, even being able to build on top of one another to a point where your perspective can be in line with what you're just saying. So that, because that's really what it's about. It's all about perspective, right?
Yeah.
And how you view things. And so how do you, or how would you encourage people to Develop a desire if it's nurtured. How would you do that?
I would I would have them personally. I would have them sit down, write down what their desire is. First of all, determine, is it a desire or a want.
Hmm.
A want is short term, right? If I want a new boat, great. There's going to be a certain point where I'm expecting to get that if I do step A, B, C.
Mm-hmm.
I think a desire to get to a certain. I think it's good to have milestones, but if you want $1 million or you desire $1 million, I think it's two different things. Both can get you to $1 million as long as you stay the course. But the desire is not really so much the tangible item that you receive at the end. I think it's the desire to build a skill to get to that point, right? And I would have somebody first of all take a look at what they want and then go, well, why do I want this?
Hmm.
What is this actually going to do for me? If I'm looking at it where I just want the tangible item of the $1 million, okay, well, they're just get a job that pays very well and you're good, or just keep trading until you get what happens after you get the $1 million? Well, I already have what I need, so my desire is gone. But if your
Mm-hmm.
desire was to build upon yourself, especially your mentality toward things, and be able to develop skills, the skill will actually last forever, and then you can take that same desire and now, especially with the tangible item, and be able to grow on that into different fields, into different investment opportunities, into different strategies or businesses or things like that. You still have that same desire, right? So if it's a want, okay, what's your step by step plan to get to the want? If it's a desire, I think at that point you have to be committed to the self learning process of every single day, wake up, learn something new, right? Find a book that will help you, motivate you, or give you advice, or teach you, if you're trading, strategies, or watch a video or something that will get you to your goal. If you wake up every single day, you get a glass of water, right? Body's made out of 60% H2O. Drink some water, take some deep breaths, focus on what the temperature of the breath that you're taking, and just think, what can I do today to help develop myself that will help get me to that next stage or toward my goal. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're focused on that enough, and you're saying, great, if I take this step today, or if I do this, that, and the next thing, that will be a step to the process. No, understanding that because you want $1 million or you desire $1 million, it's not something that might come overnight for you, right? It's a process to get there. And if the person that focuses on the end result as opposed to the growth of themselves, I think has a different end result when they do reach that $1 million.
Great point. Great point. Now, what if you don't know what your desire is? What if you're young, just starting out, haven't figured it out yet?
I think my desire at that point would be to figure it out, right? So, and I'm not being facetious. I think a lot of young people, I think a lot of older people still might not know what they want to do, right? Some
Right.
people might have just followed the path of, I need to get a job, and that's what my parents told me. I need to elementary school, high school, college, get a job, get married, have kids, and that's the path they're on, right? Because they were told that's what they should be doing. It doesn't mean they're happy in their situation, right? It doesn't mean that they feel fulfilled when they put their head on the pillow at the end of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they took a minute to sit down, and again, whether you're older, you're younger, the desire should be to try different things.
Mm-hmm.
Forget fear, forget risk, forget all that. Start to find something that excites you. Find
Mm-hmm.
find even if it's a small hobby, right? If you're working full time and you're just not happy in the course of life, and you haven't tried the stock, take a look at the stock market. Maybe it's the worst decision you've ever done. You hate it, and you know it's not for you. But in that case, you can start eliminating things that you don't like,
Agreed.
right? And I think your desire
Yeah.
should be to really get to that stage of I want to find out why I exist? Why am I here? What are the steps that I could do to where does this journey lead? Right.
Yeah.
And then once you find that, then you have a starting place to go, okay, I love XYZ. I love being I love cars. I want to be an auto mechanic. How do I figure out how to learn more about the passion that I've found, the hobby that I found? And I think that's the starting point. But I think the first part is to find what you're looking for first.
Yeah, I would agree. And I actually have another analogy that I'd like to use, and that's, your dream house, right? I used to think I knew what I wanted for a dream house. When I was younger, I had this vision. Oh, this is going to be my dream house. And it was probably influenced by a lot of what I saw on television, whatever it might be. And you grow up. But I can tell you, after owning several homes, apartments, condos, houses, property, through that whole process, I can tell you, with every single home that I've owned, every single apartment that I've owned, every single place that I've rented or lived in, I have learned little things of, I don't like this. I don't like this, or, ooh, I really like this. And through that experience, I've gotten to a point where now I could probably legitimately sit down and draw out what my dream home would look like, consist of, and have. And it's through that experience of not only looking for the things that you like, but looking at the things that you don't like, paying note. So that can play just as much of an important role as knowing what you want. So I love what you just said, and that's kind of the analogy that I wanted to throw on it for that. What about your kids? You've got some young kids. How do you motivate them to try and get on the path of self-learning?
So the kids are young, right? They're young. I think at this point, I mean, not that they're babies yet. So my daughter's going to be 7. My son just turned 5, right? So they're still figuring out social norms, I guess. They're still trying to figure out just how things interact with each other and how to be a part of society, right? Which is fantastic. So I think right now, a lot of it, and there's different small lessons. I think the kids had their first lemonade stand probably about a month ago, and they loved it. And they got to go to the Target and buy a stuffed animal and stuff like that. So, but just the different experiences that they have. It's not like I'm moving to be like, okay, you guys need to start studying charts right now and start getting invested and put 10% away into long-term save. So there's a time and place, I think, for everything. And right now, I think it's just instilling the groundwork into making sure that they kind of understand the bigger picture and how things interact with each other. And I think if I could do that at this stage, for them, I think that would be a good success and good building block to again, and back to the same thing with not understanding kind of what you want to do. Kids at age 5 and 7 have no idea what they want to be when they grow up. The only thing that you could do is have them try different things, right? Have them go to a tennis camp, have them go to a dance school, have them draw a picture, have them do different things, and they will find what they like to do, right? And then you have that groundwork as to which way to encourage the I guess the happiness or desire that they start to build, and how you could help enrich that passion for them.
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree. Thank you once again, Dan. It's been amazing.
I can't believe the time has run out. I cannot believe it.
Yep.
But thank you guys each and every week for tuning in to the Pivot Podcast. We will see you next week. See you guys later.